welcome back to our inaugural set of podcasts from the Australian Curriculum Studies Association. We're very excited. This is our second podcast that we're releasing, and we are really excited to have one of our board members, Dr. Emily Ross, here from the University of Queensland. Now, as you probably know, ACSA, as we are abbreviated to, is an organisation that really sets to provide that national voice and debate on all things curriculum and pedagogical thoughts and influences. So we're really keen to find out all about the journey of our boards and really what they have done in the curriculum space. But before we start, I would like to begin by acknowledging the traditional owners of the lands and the waterways of which we choose to live, to learn, and to work. I'd like to acknowledge and pay my respects to their elders, past and present, and acknowledge the significant contributions they have made to education and continue to do so for learners all across Australia. So let's begin. So here we are with Dr. Emily Ross. Good morning.
Good morning, Anna. Thank you for having me.
Oh, thrilled. Now, Emily is currently the Director of Primary Pre-Service Teachers at the University of Queensland and has been instrumental in a lot of national projects, including working with ACARA and ESA. And she's worked in the provision of over 500 plus resources and the digital implementation at the Queensland Curriculum Authority. She is a national voice on curriculum and pedagogy, and her research really focuses on curriculum and assessment policy and its implementation, and very much particularly in STEM education. So whilst you might not be hearing it, today we're actually recording on International Day of Women in Science. So it's thrilling that we've got Dr. Emily here today, who has got such a kind of vast expertise in that area. So
thank you, Anna. As do you.
I know we've got some kindred spirits here. It's a good day for us all today. Now, obviously, what's really exciting about you, Emily, is you've obviously had your own education. You've then obviously gone into the teaching profession. You've then gone into the tertiary sector, but you're really in a forefront space of now supporting the next generation of teachers. So you've really got that lovely expertise across the whole system. But if we look back, what would you say was your motivation for getting into education?
Look, I have been thinking about this one a bit of late, Anna. I wonder why. Yeah. But one of my key motivators, I would say, is, and I think it's similar to a lot of other teachers too. There's been an experience in your life, probably in school, most likely in school, that you either really loved or you really thought, how do I go and change that? How do I go and fix that so that's not someone else's experience? And I've got both that I can describe. I've got this situation when I was in primary school, and a few people know it about me, but not everyone. I'm dyslexic.
Okay.
And when I was in primary school, it hadn't been diagnosed. And for a long time, my mum was just told things like, don't worry, Emily will just always be average. She's fine. She's happy. You know, these sorts of feelings of it'll be all right. She loves music. You know, just push her into a music area. And over time, no one thought to expect much of what I would produce at school. And it wasn't until I got into high school that a teacher realised and sought to do something to support me. And my whole world changed. And you can see it in report cards. Like, you can see the evidence of that difference between when a teacher doesn't think you'll do much to when a teacher actually believes in you, can make a massive change in a little person's life. And I sought to want to do the same. And that teacher just happened to be a maths science teacher, and it excited my world of maths and science, and on I've gone ever since, and just love to try and unlock the same things for little people and big people who can see possibilities within curriculum.
Yeah. And that is such a beautiful story, because we were talking about the other day, you know, we really try and teach and instill in children about, you know, inclusion and diversity, and talk to them about including others and trying to understand it. But when we actually see it in action, and somebody can make that connection, say, oh my goodness, my teacher has dyslexia or my teacher has ADHD, it is so much more powerful. It really is inclusion and action. And I think, we're so lucky in that teaching profession that we have that luxury of being able to do that connection. And we know we can spend time on a relationship and build it. So that is just so wonderful to hear and to, be an inspiration to probably so many other dyslexic children who have been or students in your care. So I suppose, looking back over that, it sounds like, you've been on quite the journey. If you can maybe pinpoint one or two moments, what would you say have been your greatest accomplishment so far?
I think there'd be a couple, but
Yep.
everyone does have a couple, don't they? Trying
Yeah.
to narrow it down is the hard part, isn't it? Look,
Yes.
I think for me, being involved in Australia's first Australian curriculum or first
Yep.
national curriculum,
Yes.
as one of 4 people who were
Yep.
working at the beginning of that project was just one of those spine tingling,
moments, yeah.
moments for you where you're in there and you're in the thick of it and you're working on something really great and
Yes.
something is going to make a big difference. I think there's some big points like that, but there's also some little ones along the way that are probably really exciting for me too.
Yeah.
Things like my youngest daughter is now struggling with dyslexia. So seeing that, being able to support someone so close to you and know that you have some of the knowledge and the tools to make a real difference for someone who is so close to you, not just know that there are other people out there that hopefully you've made a difference for. I think those are kind of the 2 big moments for me as an educator and as a parent.
Oh, and that's lovely, I think, because it's one of those things I try to explain a lot of time to teachers is that the instant feedback sometimes you don't get. And that sometimes you're sowing the seeds for something that will show later on down the line. So it might not be in your classroom that success happened, but 3 years down the line, they remember that moment, that pivotal moment where it was changed, wasn't it? And it was in that. So I think that's such a beautiful way. And then I think, I'm talking about today with it being, the women in science STEM, but the power that we have as females pushing out into that world and being those kind of visible versions of the people who can go, oh, that's what I want to be. I can do it. That's just so powerful. So now, I would say the power of self-reflection, I know, took me a long time to accept. Like, it was one of those things that I felt the imposter syndrome at the start, the perfect teacher model. And self-reflection was something I really had to work on in terms of allowing myself to do so. And I think I felt it only came because I felt safe to do it with colleagues. So for yourself, is there something that you look back on and go, I may have approached that differently, or would I have changed the outcome, or maybe would I have changed the way I got to the outcome?
It's a really tricky question, Anna, because I think it's self-nature for us to always want to second guess it. I go, you're driving away from something that's happened in a day and you are constant, could I have done it this way, or could I have picked that up, or if I had done that, would it have changed the outcome? And I think I do a lot. So trying to pinpoint one of these little events along the way. I think one thing, and I try really hard to work with my pre-service teachers in this way, is to recognise that as a young teacher, you might not have all the tools at your disposal yet. But building your confidence makes a huge difference. So if you feel like there's a way that you want to try it, test it out.
Yes.
Have a go at it, but make sure you do go to that reflective place too, so that you are thinking about what you could have done or whether it worked or if it didn't, and be honest with yourself.
Yes.
I find because I teach our primary science courses at UQ, I have a lot of primary pre-service teachers who come in not feeling confident. Some of them, dare I say, have even lost the love of science. So trying to build that confidence back, you can be going from the negative to get there. So I think that would be one of the ones that I tried to give examples of when I, as a young teacher, didn't feel confident to test something, and years later recognizing that if I'd tried it then, I would have come across something a little earlier than I might have than I did in the end otherwise.
Yeah. Oh, that really resonates. When you were talking about that then, I remember, you know, it being in general primary where you're doing so many different lessons a day and you don't get that chance to do them again until next year. So if you're really good and you make the notes and you do that self-reflection, take the time, awesome. But I do remember when I went into subject specialism, and the school that I was at was brilliant because they sort of aligned it so that you'd have all of year ones one day, all of year twos the next day, whatever it would be. So you'd start the day off doing the lesson, but by the time you got to the end of the day and you taught 4 versions of the same lesson, you'd absolutely nailed it. Like those kids in the afternoon, they were getting the best version of me. You know, I was slick, everything was moving quickly, and I had time to spare for a quiz or whatever. But that was a luxury, and I don't think I appreciated the time of being able to do that and say, you know what, every single time you do something, you find out. And and as you said, the biggest thing is confidence. Your confidence grows. I'll do that better. I had a great response to that, so I'm going to keep on to it. So yeah, that's lovely to hear that, because I think that is a huge part of what our pre-service teachers need. Now, this is probably, it's your bread and butter, so you've probably got a lot, but we know the word curriculum, and we probably understand the terminology, or there's a definition, but the concept of curriculum, what does that look like in your view?
Oh, now, how long is the podcast, Anna? Have we got?
I was going to say, there's quite a lot of papers on that, isn't there?
There are many definitions of curriculum, and there are many different terms related to curriculum. So I'm going to narrow it down to talk about the intended curriculum. So that curriculum we're given by someone like a CARA or another government agency or curriculum body who give us a curriculum and say, okay, off you go. I see that as a map, and I talk often about, and I'll show my age here, the old driving holiday where you'd stop in at the servo and you'd get the big paper map and you'd unpack it, and it's about as big as the whole dashboard and no one can see through the window because of the size of the map. And it's covering every border, every creek, every crossing, every train line, all of these wonderful different destinations that you can go on. And I see that as the curriculum. It's that big map with all the valleys and troughs and things that I can spend lots of time on or a little time on. And as a teacher, I'm the guide. I get to pick the destinations that I can go to, and I get to plot the course of how I'm going to get there. And in different years, that might look a little bit different. And if a student asks a really interesting question, I might take a little detour. But I've got that capacity to pick the areas we're going to unpack as we take that time, and then have a look at our time back, where we've come, when we start to think about assessment of that time. If I have a look back to where we started and how we got to where we were, that's really that collection of evidence that tells me how we're going and whether we made it or whether we need to go back and visit something again. So the analogy of the map really speaks to me. It is something that I know Garth Boomer and others have talked about over time. And this is how I see curriculum.
It's just beautiful, because in my head I'm thinking, and I suppose coming from the UK, it's very different because I've come to Australia and the vastness of a country like this. And it still blows my mind when I do the traveling. But I love that analogy of having a destination point, having that in your mind, that's where I want to be, but also that lovely, beautiful thinking that there could be a segue along the way. So, you know what, I'm going to go visit this place because I've got a real interest in that. And, and it kind of links to a lot of the pedagogical thought, is it the straight road that we get children to? Or are we going off in our direction and doing all this kind of critical, creative thinking, I suppose, more the inquiry? So that is just a beautiful analogy. So thank you for that.
No, that's okay.
That's one I'll be using again.
I take it a step further when I teach my students about curriculum planning, and say that as you're starting out as a nervous driver, you want to have everything planned out, and Siri probably tells you every road to turn and everything to do, which is what we expect in your lesson planning. But as you get more experienced as a driver, you might plot some major milestones or a couple of places along the way. And as you gain that confidence, as you gain that experience in curriculum planning, you're going to become more and more like that experienced driver who can pick a couple of things and know what the distance between the two is going to look like and how I'll take the students on that journey.
Yes, 100%. I suppose segueing off the back of that one a little bit for the next question is more, sometimes people give us the destination or put it in the sat nav for us. And that kind of push down approach for a lot of stuff, that could be quite difficult because you kind of have the version of what you want to do. And there's a lot of debate at the moment, you know, about really kind of commercialization of a lot of different things in education, but also I feel they're not giving autonomy to teachers to do their best things. So, you know, we've trained for a lot of years to be where we are. We are experts in our field and giving us that. So if you are thinking about education today, what do you think are some of the biggest challenges that we're facing in our profession?
I do think, and there's a number of people writing about this at the moment. I do think this idea of curriculum materials and outsourcing is going to be a challenge for us. As you said just then, Anna, we've all come to the profession with some form of curriculum identity, and it might be a maths teacher, it might be a primary teacher, but you've spent time at university learning this skill, and you've brought it to your profession.
Yes.
And as more and more curriculum becomes seems to be becoming part of or seen as the administrative work of teaching rather than part of the core part of the teaching experience, I think we're going to see that being a real tension that exists. Because that's not just about the work that I'm doing. It's not just about my preparation to be able to teach the students in the classroom. You're also looking at my identity and saying, all that time I spent developing myself to be this person, you're not giving credit to. You're not treating that with the respect that it deserves for the profession I've developed. And I think I can see that being a real challenge we're going to face as we get through this next tension between how we support teachers who are teaching out of field or who need resources to support them because they don't feel that confidence, versus ensuring that teachers with that strong curriculum identity have enough autonomy and agency to be able to plan for the experience of the students in front of us.
Oh, hugely. And we keep coming back to that word confidence. And I think we sometimes just don't really give ourselves credit for how important that is. You know, at the end of the day, you have people who are terrified to do public speaking, but there's a teacher, there you are, every day at the front, needing to draw all your confidence up. And I think that is such an important part of our profession, and obviously flows through in so many different ways. So this question should be really easy for you to answer because it's what you're doing every day. But what advice do you give to graduates who are entering the workforce, and really kind of the tips to give them to make sure we're setting them up for success?
I often say to them, have a go, because that's one of the first things we stop doing. We tend to just sort of pull on the things that we know really well and we feel confident to do, and we then get ourselves into a little routine that feels like it's never ending. But if we at least experiment a little bit, have a try at something, be prepared that it might not work, but at least you've learnt and you've tested it out and you've had a go. That makes a big difference to you continuing to want to be in the profession, given the high rate of people at that point in time who feel the pressure is too much. You know, keep that excitement and keep that interest. And the other one that I often say to them is to find networks. Don't just talk to your partner at home or someone, which is great and gives you a sense of, but also there are so many people out there like yourself, your university. Some of us at uni are like the typical teacher at school. We love to hear from our students years down the track and find out what happened. Use us. We're networks as well that you have. You have a bigger network than you think.
Yes.
And be prepared to draw on them, because I'm sure if they can't answer the question, they'll have ideas of places to go or people to talk to.
Oh, that's just such a great advice. And I'm thinking back to when I was teaching some young science graduates and going science research teachers and talking about, we've all been that science teacher at the front of the room where we do an experiment and it absolutely goes and it doesn't work. And probably 99 times out of 10, if we're being honest, it's not going to work anyway, because that's just the nature of science. And so when we're teaching the scientific method, it's all about, kind of connecting with the actual method. So you fall in love with the process, not the outcome.
Yep.
So really,
absolutely, Anna.
As an educator, we have to fall in love with what we're doing and knowing that it might not always go the way we want it to go. And being okay with that, sitting okay with that.
Absolutely. And sometimes that gives you the perfect anti-example, doesn't it? To then talk about, well, what do we think went wrong? How can we fix it for next time? Or what would your advice be to the next class so that they don't do the same thing? Like there's learning even when it doesn't work. And that's the confidence piece that sometimes that we don't just, and we all have that feeling if something fails, we have a mindset about what that means. But if we actually turn it around and see each of these as a learning experience, as we tell our students, mistakes are an opportunity to learn. It's the same thing for us. We're the ultimate lifelong learners. We loved school so much we came back again. So let's keep learning from it.
That is brilliant advice. Now, we like to stay positive, and it's been lovely because you are so positive. Because you know what, it is the most rewarding, and I always feel so lucky that people give us the most precious thing in their life over to us for 8 hours of the day. And I have a huge respect for parents because, that is such an important part. And they know that they want that safety and knowledge that you care for that child as much. And it's the same with your students or whatever it is. So there's such a positivity to our profession. And, similarly, you can be having the worst day and you forgot roll call, you haven't managed to get the computer connected to the printer. All those things can happen before 8 o'clock, but then it can flip on a coin so quickly because a child runs in and is excited to show their Pokemon card or whatever it is. And we have these lovely range of emotions, I think, in our career. So it is a lovely place to be. What do you see as exciting for the future of education? What are we really going to go, oh, this is just, we're onto it. We've got this.
Well, Anna, look, I'm being a STEMmy person. I think everything is exciting because every new advancement in STEM gives us something to bring and draw into the classroom. Every new science discovery is something that is fodder for the next day in school. And I even do it at university. The number of times I've put up a photo at the start of a session and said, did you see this? Here is a brand new spider. That was a fun day. The students all saw this gigantic screen of a spider. But this was just discovered. It's a brand new discovery, something new we didn't know before. I think that's the nature of science, isn't it? That it's all about trying to unpack mysteries and phenomena that we think we know about, only to find out something richer or different and add to it. So I think there's always more exciting things around the corner that we can add to teaching. I think there's a lot that's detracting from that at times. And I think certainly some of the debates in pedagogy, whether it's this or that, are detracting from the fact, as you said before, this is one of the most rewarding professions where a group of people trust you enough to give you their little person and hope that you will bring and unlock learning and a love of learning for them.
Yes.
So I don't think you could get anything more positive than that.
Oh, wonderful. Oh, this is it is so lovely. You just talked before about that network. And, I think that is something, even having conversations with one another in that educational space, in the positive realm, as you're saying, even if it's sort of talking about something in the coffee room together, but having that lovely debate. And that's obviously what as AXA we hope to do, to be able to be the facilitator debate. But your mindset can change so quickly into like, oh, I'm seeing a different point of view and I'm going to give that a try, because people around you bring the best out in you, isn't it? That's the lovely thing. Now, I have saved the best question to last, but it's sometimes quite difficult, this one, because I think we all, as teachers, have that one person that really sat with us, who just changed it for us, we knew we were going to that place because we wanted to be around them, because what they were doing was inspiring us. So who was your favorite teacher and why?
I have two teachers.
Oh, okay. We'll let you have two just today.
I have an extra one, don't I, Hannah? I have two that I absolutely have to give a shout out to. Yeah. And one was Miss Trish Cockram, or she was in let's not talk about when that was. 1900. Who was my year 7 maths teacher and recognized that I needed that support and recognized I needed a different strategy, and changed my entire learning trajectory in that 1 year. Even in one semester, she was just incredible. And I will never forget her. And the second one was a science teacher called Mr. Michael Weir, who I then had after Miss Cockram, in year 8, 9, 10, 11, and 12. I stayed with him almost the whole way through, who unlocked science and all the different wonderful learnings that could come from science. And between the two of them, I'm fairly confident it's a fair reason I've ended up in math science teaching myself.
Oh, that's just wonderful. It's so lovely. And I love the fact that there's two, that they've really been instrumental in your life. I think just that kind of that person who is behind you all the way. And the most important part, I always say to anyone, is that the most important part of teaching is relationships. Everything comes after the relationship. So if you could, and let's face it, children spot in a heartbeat, if you're not engaged, if you're not there for the right reason. And, if you're there and you're showing that, and you're connecting, the learning comes after that. So yeah, that's so important. Now, that has been so quick, Emily, but I've just had the best last half an hour with you. And I love the fact that we are celebrating on International Women in Science and STEM Day, because the more visibility that we can show to our young daughters, and the young girls, I look at that and I just think I'm so proud that there are so many young girls who are having that confidence to carry on. Statistics aren't great for that. Looking at that at the moment, you're thinking, oh, but we also know that we have got such an enormous talent of young girls out there who are going to go off and, as you say, change the world, do things differently. And so it's lovely to be part of that. So thank you so much, and all the important work you do to support science in STEM schools, and our pre-service teachers who are going to go out and change the world as well. If you, as our listeners, if you would like to know more about Dr. Emily's brilliant work, we will drop some lines into the comments, and you can have a real sort of rummage through some of the most fantastic research that she has done and her publications. We have had a wonderful morning here today, and would like to thank all of you here for joining us, and we can't wait to see you again soon. So thank you very much.